Hello guys, welcome to RP Academy. So we are going to continue with the second part of our lecture in which we are going to talk about chapter 9, that is accounts of companies. Okay, so let's begin with the chapter. So this is about your corporate social responsibility. We usually call it as CSR or as well. So this is one of the most beautiful chapter, or better to say one of the most beautiful part, in which we talk about that how these corporates have been taking a lot from the society, the environment, and now it's their responsibility to give it back, right? You are not just taking the labor of your employees and then returning them with the salaries. Rather, you are using the natural resources. You are here using the resources that belong to a particular society, and because you are using them and making profits over there, so it is your responsibility to give people back what belongs to them, right? So here we are seeing that, imagine there is a company that has a very large profit, and it is a very big company. So basically it is earning a huge amount of money from doing a business in society. So it is using road, electricity, employees, customers, natural resources, public infrastructure, etc, etc. Now the law essentially says that, okay, if the company crosses a certain size or profit, if the company crosses a certain size or profit, now we are simply saying that it must also contribute to the specified social development activities. And while I'm saying social, I also mean here environmental aspects. Okay, fine. Now you would have seen that SCL has a very big school based on Shiv Nadar University is also there. So all these things are based on what? Your CSR activities. You see so many banks, so many other institutes, and the organizations are making or doing some kind of activities towards what? Towards their corporate social responsibility. So here comes the first question, that which companies are actually coming under the CSR. See, here we have been provided a few things that we have to check, and here we are checking the company's position in the immediately preceding year. Immediately preceding year meaning, so here what we are saying that, okay, CSR will be applicable if any of these three conditions are satisfied. Now you will say which of those three conditions are there. So we are talking about the net worth of a company, we are talking about the turnover of a company. Net worth, you know what is net worth, the share capital and etc, right? Then turnover, and then we talk about profit. So here we are saying that if the net worth is 500 CR or more, okay, 500 CR or more than that, or if the turnover is 1000 crore rupees or more than that, or above you can say, right, then 5 crore rupees or more of a net profit. While I'm talking about the profit, I'm not talking about the gross profit, I'm talking about your net profit, that must be either 5 CR or more than that. Then if any of the following conditions are met, we are saying that you are mandated to constitute a CSR committee, formulate policies, spend a portion of net profit on social initiatives. Now, as I told you, these are three conditions. Also, we are talking about that you need at least three directors, out of which one must be independent in the CSR committee. So here you have to simply understand that because here if one, let us say one company has crossed one threshold, then also they have to follow their CSR obligations. Fine. Now imagine there is a bank that has decided that whether a customer needs enhanced monitoring or not. So it may say that, okay, you may satisfy all 5 conditions, but it may also say that if you cross any one important threshold, additional requirements are also applicable. So who is handling this CSR, you have to understand. So here we have a simply committee that is working as a CSR planning team, whose job is not simply to donate some money, rather it is deciding that where should the company's CSR money go, where are you going to utilize this amount that you have kept aside for the purpose of your CSR responsibility activity, how much you are going to spend, and whether the program is actually being implemented or it is just in paper as of now. So here you will see that we require three minimum directors, right? At least one must be independent. Why there is one independent director? Can someone tell me? Because here we are saying that okay, if let us say that other two directors have interest in the organization, but the third one will be independent, he will be able to at least flag the issues if there are any, and be here thinking or be thoughtful about the society. So here you have to remember that there is a special treatment for applicable unlisted or private companies also, rather than we are just blindly applying this independent director requirement. Okay, so you have to remember that when it comes to unlisted companies, we also have to take care this into our mind that there might not be some independent director, okay, in their board of directors. Now what is the mandatory expenditure that you have to go ahead with? So we are saying that okay, the company cannot secretly create a company and keep shareholders guessing. So here the composition of the CSR committee must be disclosed in the board of directors report, and here while they will be formulating the policy, the committee recommends a CSR policy to the board, and it identifies the social activities the company intends to take under within the activities permitted. Okay, so here how much you have to spend? See, a company covered by CSR provision must spend at least 2% of the average net profits. So 2% of the average net profits of how many years? So of preceding 3 years. Okay, immediately preceding 3 years, in which you are going to find out the average. First of all, so suppose there are 3 years, year 1 is 10 cr, year 2 is let us say 25 cr, and in the year 3 let us say the net profit will be your 10 cr again. Okay, so how much will be the total? It will be 5 and then 45. So 45 by 3, it will be your 15. So I am simply saying that okay, 15 cr into 2%, that will be how much? 30 lakh rupees. So company has to spend how much amount? 30 lakh rupees towards its CSR activities. Okay, understood? So 2% of average net profits of the preceding financial year. Fine. Also you have to remember one simple thing, that while we were talking about the CSR committee, here there are 3 big jobs that we have provided them. First of all, they have to formulate a CSR, so they have to formulate a CSR policy. Then what they have to do? They have to make sure that this CSR policy is recommended to the board of directors under the schedule 7. Then they will recommend that how much money they have to spend, and they have to also monitor that whether the policy is being implemented or not, and the CSR committee recommends, but the board has the responsibility to what do? To approve the CSR. Okay, just remember one line, that the board of directors have a overall responsibility to approve the CSR policy, to publish it on the website of the organization. Also they have to make sure that it ensures that it is implemented, to make sure that the policy is implemented. Understood? So committee will recommend, then board will approve, and company will implement the same. Okay, understood? Now let's talk about some other parts of this particular provision. So where here we are talking about the treatment of unspent CSR funds. So here we are simply saying that okay, what if the company doesn't spend the required amount? So suppose what happens, that a company has a CSR obligation of 50 lakh rupees, but it has spent only let us say 40 lakh rupees. So 10 lakh rupees are left with the organization. So I will say that okay, this company cannot simply ignore these 10 lakh rupees, rather it has to make sure that the unspent amount of the ongoing project is there. Let us say the company is constructing a school. Now it is a genuine multi-year project, right? So the project is still continuing at the end of the financial year. So we are going to say that okay, this is an ongoing project. And for an ongoing project, I am saying that suppose you have a CSR obligation of let us say here 50 lakh rupees, you have spent 40 lakh, then 10 lakh rupees is left. So for those 10 lakh rupees, here it is not necessarily lost, rather it must be transferred within 30 days from the end of the financial year to a special bank account. Okay, and what will be the name of the bank account? Unspent CSR account. Okay, so on the 31st of March, your financial year will end. Now from 31st of March we will talk about next 30 days, that is 30th of April. You have to spend this, you have to deposit this amount or transfer this amount into the unspent CSR account, which must be spent within 3 years. If it is still unspent, transfer it to the Schedule 7 fund. Okay, now what we are saying, that suppose the company is saying that okay, we haven't spent this CSR money yet, but it is committed to an ongoing CSR project, so we are putting it into a separate account rather than using it for somewhere else. So the amount must be spent within 3 financial years of the ongoing projects. Now what if it is still not spent after 3 years? If it is not spent after 3 years, we are going to transfer the amount to a Schedule 7 fund within 30 days from the completion of which year? Third financial year. Okay, as soon as the third financial year gets over, you have to send the amount from unspent CSR account to where? Schedule 7 fund. Understood? So what we have understood, for an ongoing project, if the financial year ends and the amount is left, then it will be sent into the unspent CSR account, and from there after next 3 years of a financial year of this particular ongoing project, we have to send this amount to Schedule 7 fund. Why? Because the amount was still unspent. Now what if it is not an ongoing project? So what we have to do here, see, imagine the company or simply planned it, okay, we are going to organize a one-time health camp at the financial year ended. So the company hasn't spent the required amount, it is not an ongoing project, so the treatment will be different. The unspent amount must be transferred to where? Directly to the Schedule 7 fund, okay, within 6 months of the financial year end. Okay, this is clear to you. So we have here 3 types of time limits: ongoing project, unspent CSR account, 30 days. Okay, other than ongoing project, fund will go towards the Schedule 7 fund within 6 months. Ongoing projects that had remained unspent after 3 years, the amount will be transferred from an unspent CSR account to your which account? Schedule 7 fund. Okay, now they say that okay, what happens if the company doesn't transfer the unspent money properly? Then we are saying that okay, there will be a penalty which will be how much? Twice of the unspent money, twice of whatever amount that you have not spent, or 1 crore rupees, and here also we are seeing that whichever amount is lower, that you have to submit as a penalty. Okay, understood? Now if this is about company, if there is an officer in default, then what will happen? Here we are saying that fine, if the officer is responsible, he is going to face 1/10 of the unspent account amount or 2 lakh rupees, whichever is less. And also here we are seeing that suppose that the 20 or 10 lakh rupees is there, right? So 1/10 of 10 lakh rupees will be how much? 1 lakh rupees, right? So here we are saying that fine, now out of 1 lakh rupees and 2 lakh rupees, whichever is less, which is less, 1 lakh rupees less, so you have to pay a penalty of 1 lakh rupees. Okay, for the company, 2 into unspent amount or 1 crore rupees, whichever is lower. For an officer in default, 1/10, that is 1/10 of the unspent amount or 2 lakh rupees, whichever is lower. Clear? Now small obligation exemption. So if the CSR obligation is less than 50 lakh rupees or equal to 50 lakh rupees, no CSR committee is required. Okay, is that clear to you? Now section 136, right to copies. So here we have to discuss about what? We have to talk about section 136, but there are few things, I think because of the AI these are left to. Okay, I will be teaching you that part also. These are provided already in the notes because I have made these slides using the AI, and that's why some part is left. Okay, so yeah, what we were talking about? We were talking about our CSR. We saw that how CSR committee had to work, and we talked about the average. Now we have some preference for local areas also. Fine. So suppose that there is a company ABC Limited that has a huge manufacturing part, and it is working, let us say, in some cities like let us say Mumbai, right? Now what happens? it has a CSR obligation. So the law says that company should give preference to the local areas and the areas around where it operates. So basically, what is the logic's intuition? It says that okay, if the business is operating in one particular community, give it reasonable priority to help that community, right? So we are saying that it does not simply mean that all the CSR monies will be spent in the local area, but we are prioritizing the local area. We are giving a preference to them. Okay, I hope now this is clear to you. You have understood this particular concept very nicely about everything. Now let us talk about the central government also. So they say that central government can issue general and special directions. So what kinds of directions? General or special. Fine. So here what we are saying that understand that if the companies ain't implementing the CSR framework properly, the government can simply, what they can do, tell them that what compliance action is required. Okay. Also there is one more important provision related to the 50 lakh rupees amount. Okay. So we are saying that suppose a company CSR obligations are not exceeding 50 lakh rupees, then there is no separate CSR committee that is required. So board will itself perform the functions of the CSR committee. But remember this does not it doesn't mean that we are not going to apply the CSR provisions. Okay, that will be applicable. So the 50 lakh rule is about what? Whether a separate CSR committee is required or not. It doesn't mean simply that CSR doesn't apply below 50 lakh rupees. It will definitely be applicable. Okay, understood? Now next to section 136 and section 137. So here in the section 136 we are going to talk about right to copies. Whose right? Members' right to what? Audited financial statements. So in the section 136 we are going to talk about that have the shareholders received the information before their annual general meeting. Okay, so imagine that ABC Limited has just finished its annual financial statement. So now there are two things. One, we are going to cover under the one section 136, so that whether they have received the financial information or not, and also under the section 137 we talk about two people, that is government and also your registrar of companies, and we simply say that have they received the financial statement after the AGM or not? Okay, so here first of all let's talk about the section 136 in which we are going to talk about right of members to financial statement. So imagine you are a shareholder of ABC Limited, the company has its AGM coming up. Would it be fair if the company said that okay, come to the AGM tomorrow and we will show you the financial statement for the very first time? Of course not. You need time to read, understand those numbers, right? You have to read them, you have to understand them. Why? Because you may have a lot of investment, your hard-earned money in this particular company. So here, before deciding that what to ask or vote on, you will understand these things, and that's why 136 is creating a minimum advance delivery period where there is a rule of 21 days before AGM. Meaning they say that the company must send copies of financial statements, consolidated financial statements wherever applicable, auditor's report, board of directors report. To whom? To the relevant members as well as the other entitled persons. So at least 21 days, okay, of a meeting will be done before the AGM. Okay, so here just a second. Sorry, I just got somewhere occupied. Yeah, so we were talking about your 21 days rule, right? Yeah, so I was telling you that the company must send copies of board of directors report, auditors report, financial statements, consolidated financial statements wherever applicable for CFS, right, to the relevant members and other entitled persons at least 21 days before their annual general meeting. So here you do not need to be like, okay, yeah, we are giving some kind of a surprise to the shareholders, just look at these financial statements and tomorrow is the meeting and they will see, oh, there are so many issues, how do we rectify these, and then they will be like no, this is not going to happen. Okay, so here we are saying that okay, the board of directors report must be sent to the entitled persons at least 21 days before the AGM. Now, electronic delivery is also allowed for the listed companies. Okay, so here we are saying that for a section 8 company, the period will be 14 days, and for the normal company, the period will be 21 days. Remember this also. Okay, this is also important. I think this is also not mentioned by my AI, but do not worry, my memory is far better than my AI. Yeah, so who is getting this document? See, the requirement is not limited to the ordinary shareholders. It includes relevant members, debenture trustees, other persons entitled to receive them. So the law is trying to ensure that people with a legitimate interest in the company's financial affairs also get the information. So here we are saying that the strict timelines and procedures for filing adopted and unadopted financial statements with the registrar of companies, we are providing them under section 137. See here, I think again there are few things. So see here we are saying that the requirements are basically limited to shareholders. No, they are including members, debenture trustees, other people who are entitled. Fine. Now we are saying that okay, if the company wants to give less than 21 days, can the company do so? No, because here you have to remember that the shorter notice is possible if members holding at least 95% of the total voting power agree to it. For example, suppose there are shareholders who have total voting power of 100%. If holders representing 95% power or more, okay, 95% power or more, and they agree that okay, we do not need us 21 days notice, you just give us a 10 days notice and we are going to be available in the meeting, then the company can proceed under this shorter notice provision also. Okay, and talking about the documents being sent to electronically, we are saying that okay, we can send the documents by email to the registered addresses. Fine. Now, here you have to understand that members also have an inspection right. I think now I should teach you with notes only. I know some people do not like the look of that notes, but somewhere because of notes I am sure that everything is covered with this AI thing. Okay, it has made my job easier, but also the content is missing here now. So anyways, the company must keep copies of the relevant statement available for inspection at its registered office, during what? Business hours. Okay, so we are saying that at least 21 days before the meeting, the company must keep the copies of the documents at the registered office during their business hours. So the shareholders have two layers of access. Layer 1 will be what? Sending the documents to them electronically, and layer 2 will be keeping them available for the inspection. And if the companies do not comply with section 136, they will have to pay a penalty of 25,000 rupees. If the companies are basically seeing that okay, there is an officer in default, we are going to charge them 5,000 rupees of penalty. Simple. Now we are going to talk about the next section, that is section 137, where we are talking about filing with the registrar. So here we are saying that okay, it is talking about file the financial statement with the registrar of companies, and here there is a rule of 30 days. Suppose the AGM happens on, let us say, 30th of September. Okay. Now what we are saying? We are saying that the financial statement adopted at that AGM must generally be filed with ROC within 30 days of the AGM, and we have to use a form is known as your AOC 4. Okay, so here we are saying that what is the rule? AGM say 30 days pehle we have to provide the report of, we have to file it with the ROC, and we have to file AOC 4, right? So what if shareholders don't adopt the financial statements? See here, suppose the AGM happens but the FS are not adopted, then the company may say that fine, then we are not filing anything. No ways, the company cannot say this. Okay, the unadopted financial statement still have to be filed within the prescribed period, and ROC is going to record them. How ROC is going to record them? ROC will be recording them as what? Provisional, until the statements are eventually adopted. So we cannot say okay, don't confuse that adopted, if it is not adopted means it is not filed. No, this is not the case. This is not the case. Okay, not adopted doesn't mean that it is not filed. You have to remember that we are simply saying that okay, unadopted financial statements have to be filed with the within the prescribed period, and ROC will just record them as what? Provisional. So let us read the theory here. So we have to file with the ROC within 30 days of AGM in form AOC4. Now from AGM to 30 days in the which form? AOC4, right? And then if it is unadopted, then also we have to file it within 30 days, but ROC will record it as provisional until adopted, and consider that AGM was not held. So file a statement with reasons within 30 days of the last date AGM should have been held. Meaning, we are saying that imagine that the company was supposed to hold its AGM, but it could not. Now, what will happen? The company still has a filing obligation, so it has to file the financial statements. Also, it will file a statement where it will explain that why this AGM was not held. Okay, and here we are saying that it must be filed within the 30 days of the last date of which the AGM should have been held. Okay, now we are saying that if there is no AGM, that means you have to file the financial statements with reason. Okay, now what will be the penalty for not filing it? So here you will see the penalty will be again those 10,000 rupees for company, and if the contravention continues every day, then it will be how much? It will be 100 rupees per day. Fine. This is for whom? The company. And what about, dear guys, for ROC? It will for the officer in default. Sorry. So here we will say that okay, if MD, CFO or officer are in default, they have to pay 10,000 rupees, 100 rupees per day. But the maximum amount here can be 50,000 rupees. But for the company, we are saying the maximum amount can go up to a limit of 2 lakh rupees. Okay. So the penalty is almost same. The company will be how much? Let us say the company did not file it and it had defaulted for, let us say, 500 days. Now it will pay 10,000 rupees plus 100 into 500. Fine. Now how much will be this amount? 10,000 plus, let us say, 50,000, that is 60,000. Okay, this will be for whom? Company. For the officer, how much it should go? It will be the same, right? But here, because the officer cannot pay more than 50,000 rupees, so he will just pay the 50k, not complete 60k, but the company will pay 60,000 rupees as a whole. Understood? So officer's liability is maximum 50,000, and the company in default, its liability will be maximum 2 lakh rupees. Understood? Now this is clear. So under section 134, we talked about the company preparing, approving report and reporting its financial information. Section 136 talking about the giving the financial information to the members before AGM, and then AGM, after the AGM, member gets the opportunity to consider the statements, and the company files the financial statements with ROC. Now let's talk about section 138, where we are going to talk about your internal audit. Fine. So in the internal audit, what we are talking about, see here we were up to now checking the external part, right? Now meaning external part doesn't mean that we were checking the building of the company, rather we were just checking from outside, right? Now imagine there is a large bank branch. Okay, the branch manager says that okay, we have thousands of transactions happening every month and the statutory auditor may come later, so examine the financial statements. But the bank also needs someone to continuously ask that okay, are our processes working properly? Is the money being handled correctly? Are there errors, leakages or control weaknesses? So here we are talking about simple idea behind your internal audit, where section 138 requires prescribed classes of companies to appoint an internal officer. Okay, we have to appoint an internal officer to conduct audits of the functions and activities of the company. So here we are saying that okay, we can ask any CAs, cost accountant or another professional chosen by the board of directors. So fine. So here See, internal auditor doesn't mean the person who is checking whether profit is correct or not. Rather, here internal auditor is just checking that company's internal health is good or not. So they are looking at the company's system and processes, and they may ask if the internal controls, okay, if the internal control systems are good or not. They are ensuring if the all reports are accurate or not, checking whether the company is adhering to the policies or not, whether the verify expenses record are verified or not. They assess so many things, right? What they are assessing here, they are checking if the procedures are being followed, if there is a risk of fraud, are there unnecessarily some inefficiencies, are internal policies usually actually being followed, are assets being protected, fine, or even the expenses being properly authorized or not. So here the purpose is to catch weakness before they become a bigger problem for the company. Okay, all these images that it has included in this particular slide, it's really nice. So you can check here all the internal audit things. So right, yeah. So which companies must have internal audit? So here we are saying that every listed company, a company if that is listed on what? Stock exchanges, here internal audit is required and there is no threshold calculation needed. But for unlisted public companies, of course, the paid up capital must be either 50 crore rupees or more than that, turnover 200 crore rupees or more than that, loan 100 crore rupees or more than that, or deposits more than 25 crore rupees or more. Okay, so an unlisted public company is covered if any of these following thresholds that I just told you, right, is met in the preceding financial year or not. And here you just have to check that. Okay, let us say that ABC Limited is a unlisted company. It is an unlisted company, but also here we are seeing that it is a public company where the paid up capital is, let us say, 30 crore rupees, but the turnover is 250 crore rupees. So its paid up capital is less than 50 crore rupees, that is 30 crore, but the turnover is 250 crore rupees, which is of course more. So here we are going to provide an internal auditor. Okay, so here this internal audit requirement will be applicable because it has crossed one threshold. Now let's talk about private companies. So if the turnover is more than or equal to 200 crore rupees, or the outstanding loans are equal to or more than your 100 crore rupees, fine. So we are going to talk about your what? We are going to talk about that you may need either of the conditions. Okay, not both of the conditions. It is not an and wala part, it is either. Okay, so some people may call it either and some may call it either. So I usually call it either now. Earlier in my childhood days I used to call it either, so my one of the faculty said that no, it is must be either. Then I started pronouncing it as either. Now I got to know that in this American English we call it as either, and in UK English we call it as either. Anyways, we were talking about private companies, so we will stick to the topic, right? Otherwise you will say that ma'am is just wasting our time. So for a private company, the thresholds are narrower. Internal audit will be applicable if any of the conditions are met. Then here we are saying that okay, private company doesn't use the 50 crore paid up capital test here, so we have to remember the simple part. Okay, understood? So for listed company, every listed company. For unlisted public company, 50, 200, 125 is your what? Criteria. 50 crore capital, 200 crore turnover, 100 crore loan, 25 crore rupees deposit. For private companies, it is 200 crore rupees of turnover and 100 crore rupees of loan. Okay, so here the company's rule, you are basically using such kind of wording. You should not get confused. Okay, now who can be an auditor? As I told you, these people can be an auditor. Fine, that's it. Okay, the lecture is over, but here are a few things that you must remember, that about employees versus the outside professionals, because it is an internal audit. So what I'm talking about this, see, I'm saying that to imagine there is a ABC Limited, it is appointing a qualified CA who is working inside the company. Is that possible? Definitely. If there is an external professional firm is there, external professionals or the firm, right? that can also be possible subject to the applicable requirements. So internal audit doesn't necessarily mean that we need internal employees only. It can be that we can outsource the responsibilities. Okay, now who is deciding that when the internal auditor will check or it will audit the systems? See here, the internal auditor is not supposed to randomly walk around the company saying, oh, okay, today I am going to check this particular cafeteria. No, that cannot be possible, right? So the audit committee, or where applicable the board of directors, will be formulating the scope, functioning, okay, what they will be doing, scope, functioning, as well as periodicity, as well as the methodology. Okay, so scope, functioning, periodicity and methodology of the internal audit function as prescribed. So here they are deciding what the internal audit should cover and how it should operate. Okay, understood? Okay, can someone tell me what is the difference between internal audit as well as your statutory audit? See, statutory audit is just like your independent opinion on the financial statement, and it is basically working according to the laws, while the internal audit is improving or checking the internal systems and controls. So here they are checking process, control, risk, efficiency, compliance, and they are being appointed by the companies in audit committee of the board or board of directors as per the law. Who? Internal auditors, and they can be an employee, and here they are just checking the financial solvency of the company. But for statutory auditors, as I told you, they are basically here expressing their independent opinion. So they are focusing on the financial statements, and shareholders are usually appointing these statutory auditors under the act, who can generally not be an employee of the company, and here they must meet the statutory eligibility. So generally they are CA. While for internal auditors, they can be CAs, cost accountant, other professionals as permitted by board of directors, right? So here they are working as an independent final examiner. Okay, understood? Now that is clear to you. So I hope with this our chapter 9 is completed. Chapter 9 was actually not your part of the syllabus, I think, but of course questions are being asked here, so I have included in your this particular part, because there are so many chapters and things which are not given explicitly in your syllabus, but they are asking questions every year, so you have to learn and cover it. Okay, you cannot skip it. Fine. Okay, that's it for the day. I hope you like the lecture. So first of all, press the like button. You can also comment here, and you can message me on Telegram if you are having any doubts. And people have started giving mocks, so they have started preparing with the MCQs part. So if you are having any doubt, if you want me to analyze your mocks and tell what are your weakness, and if you want the real improvement, it doesn't matter if you have purchased the courses or the test series or not. Okay, maybe some of you have purchased the course or test series from some other organizations, then also you can connect with me. There is no problem in that. Okay, you must clear your exam. All these coaching industry things will be remaining with the coaching industry. The student must focus only on their preparation and clearing the examination, right? So that's it for the day. Thank you so much, guys. Bye bye, take care, have a great day ahead.